The 35 Remington is dead. Long live the 35 Remington. How can the dead 35 Remington live? Well, it's had a little surgery, changed its shape a bit, and now self-identifies as the 360 Buckhammer. Its pronouns are bing, bang, and boom. And we're going to find out all about it in this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors. Yeah, the 35 Remington is probably on the way out, folks, but it's back under a new name. In this day and age of self-identification, why not decide you're going to be a 360 Buckhammer? It produces almost identical ballistics to the good old 35 Remington. So that's why the 35 Remington is probably dead. Or will the new 360 Buckhammer beat it into the grave? We're going to find out on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors. All right, what's all this about two cartridges you probably have never fired? Well, the 35 Remington from 1908 was real popular in the middle of the 20th century, and a lot of old-timers and their grandsons who've inherited their rifles are griping that the 35 Remington just doesn't get any love. Well, it's because it's essentially obsolete. Nobody makes any rifles for them anymore. Well, I take it back. Henry does. The side gate lever action rifle from Henry is still chambered in 35 Remington, but boy, that's the only one I can think of. It used to be really popular right after it came out. Now, Remington invented this cartridge in 1906, but they didn't have any rifles chambered for it until 1908. So either date will work for its introduction, but became pretty popular because it was competing against the 30-30 Winchester. And a lot of folks liked it because it's a 35 caliber, and a 35 caliber makes a bigger hole, and it generally shot 200 grain bullets. You could get 180s and sometimes maybe 210s, 220s, but the 200 grain bullet was sort of its bread and butter load. And the argument went for a long time, which was better, but, you know, they're pretty close to 30-30 and the 35. I don't think there's a huge advantage in energy. The 30-30 shoots a little flatter, and we're going to look at some numbers and go out and do some shooting to see some power levels on this. But the real reason I'm having this little episode is because of this 360 Buckhammer. Now, if you hold it up alongside of the 35, you might say, looks a little bit smaller to me. I don't think it's going to keep up, but it actually does. It shoots the same 35 caliber bullets. Forget about the 3.6 in its name. These people or these manufacturers can call things pretty much anything they want. And the 360 sounded a lot sexier, I guess, than the 350. There's already a 350 legend. You don't want to get your Remingtons confused with your Winchesters. So they went with the 360, but it is essentially shooting the same bullets as the 35 Remington to the same velocities, maybe a little bit more. The upshot is this is the newbie. It's being chambered in new rifles, and that's why I think the 35 Remington is dead, except ballistically, it's still here, just in a new outfit. So the new outfit consists of a rimmed cartridge rather than rimless, and that makes it the perfect candidate for a rifle that close-range woods hunters love. The good old lever action. Now, the 35 Remington was chambered in the Marlin 336 lever action rifle, and for a while even in the Mossberg. I think it was the 469 or 479, but it was really built for pump action rifles, pump actions, and autoloaders. So the Remington 14, I think the 41, the Model 760, the slide action Remington rifles, that's where the 35 Remington made its mark. But Marlin did real well with it in its lever actions, even though it has a rimless case. Somehow Marlin made it work, and I guess, I don't know, I've never quite understood this, but Winchester just doesn't chamber its Model 94 for rimless cartridges. I suspect they could figure it out. It can't be that complicated. But whatever the reason, these days Remington went with the 30-30 Winchester. They just expanded the neck to handle that 35 caliber bullet. And then you've got a rimmed case that's going to work beautifully in the lever action rifles. Now, I assumed that Marlin would be the first one out with this in their 336, but they have yet to announce it that I know. But as you just saw here, the Henry Sidegate is already out in it. There's also a single shot from Henry. There's a single shot from another firm. I've forgotten the name, but a Traditions Outfitter G3, I think is that rifle. That's a single shot break action. And, there's the Magnum Research Revolver, the BFR, Best Finest Revolver, whatever that stands for. That one has actually chambered into 360. So it seems like it's starting to pick up a little steam. Now, they announced this in 22, I believe. In 23, it first became available in the hunting season. And I haven't heard from too many guys who've been out with it, but I'm sure it's been around the block a few times. We're going to look at some ballistic numbers and find out just what this does compared to the 35. So here we go. 35 Remington, 1906, 1908, 360 Buckhammer came out in 22 or 23. The parent cartridge for the 35 was nobody. The parent cartridge for the 360 was the 30-30 Winchester, both shooting a 35 caliber bullet. That's a .358, not the 357, although hand loaders have told me many times you can put the 357 pistol bullets in the 35 and work up some magic with that. The length of these are about the same. The 35 is a little bit longer, but they're both essentially short actions. They're a little bit shorter than the 308. I think the 308 is 2.85 inches, and these are 2.35 or 2.5. Yeah, this one's 2.35. This one's 2.525. So they're all going to work just well as can be in those lever action rifles. We already said rimless versus rimmed. Here's the big difference. Maximum average chamber pressures for the 35 Remington, 33,500 PSI. That is really low, really low. That's getting down there to the original 4570 government. Whereas the modern one, Remington wisely cranked that up to 50,000 PSI. And that, in the right loading, can give it about a 200 foot per second advantage over the 35. That's in factory ammunition. Now, hand loaders tell me that they can pretty regularly, in modern, strong rifles, up the ante with that 35 and get its pressures up to modern levels like this and mimic the same velocities. Bullets are the same, and you're going to run from about 180 grains to 230. But most of them will be around 200 grains. And the factory ammo for the 35 Remington, maybe not surprisingly, but you can actually get more variety out of the old 35 than the new 360. You can find Remington, Federal, Winchester, Hornady, Buffalo Bore, and double tap loaded 35 Remington. But in the 360, Remington and Federal. That's it so far. But it is new, so time will tell. I would imagine if it starts to do pretty well, Hornady will start loading it, and then several others will probably follow. And then they just flip now on the available rifles. You've got a lot more available in the 360. You've got the Henry Sidegate we mentioned, that Henry single shot, the Traditions Performance Outfitter G3, the Magnum Research BFR 360 revolver. So I don't know how this is going to play out. One would think, wow, the latest and greatest cartridge is probably going to take over. And because very few rifles are made for the 35 Remington, maybe it will. But then again, there's this nostalgia thing going on. And a lot of guys are liking to sort of resurrect the old Woods cartridges, which right in the wheelhouse for that 35 Remington. And I don't know, we remain to be seen whether this 360 is going to take off. Now, you might wonder, if the 35 Remington is sort of dying on the vine and nobody's been chambering rifles for it for several years, why start with one that does the same thing and expect to sell it? Well, it was all inspired by those straight-walled states, the ones that don't allow rifle hunting for whitetail deer with modern bottleneck cartridges. They think there's some sort of a safety advantage in a slower cartridge, and the only way they can really identify it is to just say straight wall only. So that's why they created the necked up 30-30 to make the 360 Buckhammer. Now, as for the actual performance, let us assume that you're shooting a 200 grain bullet out of the 35 Remington, and the muzzle velocity is usually around 2,000 feet per second. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, but that's generally it. Whereas the 360 Buckhammer is rated for closer to 2,200, 2,180, somewhere in that range. The difference in muzzle energy then is 1,777 foot-pounds for the old 35 and 2,108 for the new 360. So there's a bit of an advantage there if you like a little more energy. The drops now, if you zero both of these for 150 yards, you are only going to be 2.5 inches to 2 inches high at 100. With the 200 grain Remington, you're 2.6, so let's figure 2.5 inches high at 100 yards, dead on at 150, 6.6 inches low at 200. And this is why these are considered woods rifles. Good to 150 yards, maybe 200 if you have good eyes, or if you've put a scope on your rifle and you can see to aim accurately that far. But that's pretty much a point blank range operation out to 200 yards for a deer. And then the 150 yards retained energy is 962 foot-pounds. So you're getting to that 1,000 foot-pound standard, getting just a little bit under that at 200 yards, or that 150 yards, which again recommends or suggests that this might not be your best long-range option. Now, what about the 360 Buckhammer with that same bullet at 2,180 feet per second? You've got 2,108 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And if you zero that one at 150 yards, you are only 2 inches high at 100, and you're only 5.3 inches low at 200. So you're going to get a little more reach out of that. And I don't know about you, but I would probably roll with it rather than get the good old 35 in the lever action rifles today. I'd see what they've gotten at 360. And then at 150 yards, you're hanging on to 1,159 foot-pounds of energy. So you get a little bit more energy if that matters much to you. I don't think the whitetails are going to care too much. Now, recoil's not really an issue with either of these. 14.5 foot-pounds with the 35 Remington, 16.3 foot-pounds with the 360. It's a little more than the 243s. It's about like a 30-30, a little more than that. So if you know what that feels like, you have a pretty good idea what these are going to feel like. And I think I took those recoil numbers in an 8-pound rifle. You might find yourself with a 7-pound lever action, so you'll get a little more that way. Now, how much fun are these to shoot? Ooh, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take this side gate Henry out here and do a little bit of plinking and then run some of these loads over the chronograph. I don't have a 35 to compare it against. We're just going to assume that their numbers are correct. But we're going to chronograph this guy. We'll probably do some 180 grain bullets as well as some 200. And we'll shoot some jugs of water and knock a few things over and just get a feel for the energy. And I can tell you what that recoil feels like too. So let's grab our Henry in 360 and go see what it does. Okay, guys, this is the side gate from Henry, lever action rifle, classic stuff. It's based off the Marlin 336, pretty much the same action. First thing I like to do with a new rifle is just run through the motions with it, check the barrel, make sure it's clear, and then see how things are cycling. Feel that trigger. This thing weighed in at 7 pounds, 9 ounces. I don't know how I'm going to be able to shoot that open sight, but this is what happens when your eyes get a little older. And then I want to do is find out how many rounds it holds and then how it cycles those rounds. 2, 3, 4, 5. This was important back in the day. 6, to have a lot of rounds because we couldn't shoot very well. 7, nope, 6 rounds. Okay, now you could go 1 into the magazine and then have 7 total. Don't know what you need 7 rounds for unless you're defending yourself against the charging horde of bears or something. So now I want to see if they will cycle through the rifle. Well, that's all working well. So pretty much tells me everything here is working. Whether or not they'll actually go off. Maybe they didn't send a firing pin. I don't know. But let's find out. 360 Buckhammer is what we have. I don't think I'm going to shove 6 of them into the magazine, but let's do 4 and 0. Now I have a target at 50 yards, which for me is a good distance to 0 with an open sight, given my eyesight at least. And I got a chronograph out here. I am going to keep that open, get the chronograph set up. All right, let's see if I can put a hole in the paper. Well, let's see what I hit or didn't hit. Looks like I didn't hit anything. Holy moly, I don't see a holy. Okay, when at first you don't succeed, walk on out there. 23.22 on the velocity. That's nice. Well, I went out to 25 yards and gave it a shot. It's 2 3/4 inches high, so that means it's really high at 50, and I'm already completely down on the ladder. Oh, how can I compensate for that? The mild shooter, though, I'll give it that. Gosh, I'm taking as fine a bead as I can and even see the darn thing. I'm gonna have to get another sight on this. I'm gonna aim for the bottom of the target, see if I hit it. Something in the paper that time. 2335. I saw right there. I didn't see that one. That's my latest one. What's that?
That was the first one.
Huh.
You just didn't see it.
How come I never saw that? I walked right out there and I didn't see it.
Okay.
Oh, man. And I said my eyes were bad for seeing the sight. I can't even see the holes in the target when I'm right up to it. I need new glasses. That is crazy. All right, let's see if I can shoot any kind of a group with this. Gosh, given my eyes, I don't know. I may have to go to a 25-yarder. So I'm going to get if I keep this rifle, I've got to get peep sights on here. Skinner Sights has some really nice one. I put one on my 22 rimfire, and that worked out pretty nicely. I've been shooting grouse in the head with that at 25 yards. I like that. So I don't know. Might have to make a switch there. Well, let's see if I can get any kind of a group out of this thing. I really don't think it's a fair judge of the rifle's ability, more of my inability. So I'm going to shoot for the lower left red circle. Got to give it a good stiff snap back to eject. I didn't quite go back hard enough. Yeah, what I'm having really troubles with is I've got a shiny edge on my side. I need to take some flat black and knock that down, picking up this open white sky. .2347. Getting good consistent speeds off of this. Now this was the 180 grain load, and that's supposed to be going 2,400 feet per second. And this is a 20-inch barrel. They probably measured that out of a 24-inch barrel. So this velocity, I think, is hanging right in there, what it should be. So maybe we'll try some 200 grains next. Were I hunting with this for deer, bear, or anything else, I would go with I'm pretty sure the 200 grain load. You don't have a real high sectional density with these, so I think that's what you'd want to run, is that 200 grain bullet. Good to go out, take a look at those. Guess I can look here and see if I got any kind of a group.
Go out, record. Let's go out.
Yeah, this isn't making any kind of sense.
This was your first one.
Yeah, I know, but I was aiming here and I hit everything over here. No, we don't have to go out there. We just talk about it from here. So
They can't see you, though.
I'm aiming. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 to 7 inches high, and a good 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 to the right. So, yeah, unless I put a scope on here or get a peep sight, I just don't think we can judge the accuracy of this rifle with me shooting it. I think I need to get a 25-year-old out here to shoot this thing. But I think a fair test of it might be to try to shoot some jugs or something. The point is, if you've got a rifle like this, A, you have to have good eyes. B, you have to be fairly close, or you have to put a sight on it of some kind. Red dot, scope, something where you can see. It must be possible with your eyes, because when I was a kid, I hunted with this style of sight all the time, and I got my deer. So I'm going to blame it on grandpa eyes. But this is, I think, again, part of the big challenge. You know, we no longer dial our scope up and reach out there at 300-400 yards and take whatever we want. You've got to get in tight, get in close, and really practice to get effective at shooting one of these. But boy, they are a lot of fun to handle. I just love running that. Well, here are velocities with those 180 grain bullets.
2,339, 2306, that was a low. So 2322, our high was 2347, our low was 2306. We averaged 2,329 feet per second. Not bad. 41 for an extreme spread. Pretty nice for factory loads. All right. Now let's see what the 200 grains will do. Yeah, let's try some 200 grain. 1, 2, 3. I feel like Lucas McCain. Really like working with those external hammers. Get our ears on here. I double ear protect. Going mainly for velocity here. I don't expect much of a group. 2109. Come on, sight, where are you? 2164. 2171. Well, let's go out there and see if anything hit the paper. 1, 2, 3. Boy, that would have been a sweet group right there. But I don't know which ones landed where and when. None of this would have been bad for centering a deer. I mean, gosh, you got your deer every time. This one, Betsy claims, was my first shot, but I never saw that darn thing at all. And I don't know which one this was. At one point, my first shot, I was aiming here, so she thinks that I hit here. I didn't see it. I thought it went over the target. So I aimed down here and then hit up here. And then the next shots were somewhere in here. Then I switched to aiming here and put everything here, plus one right there. So, well, yeah, blame me, guys. Looks like this rifle's capable of grouping, but until I put a scope on it, I'm really not going to be able to judge that. It does tell me, though, that I probably shouldn't be shooting 150-yard deer with this rifle or any other open sight. Now, let's see what our 200 grain bullets did. High, 2,171 feet per second. Our low is 2,109. We averaged 2148. Not bad. Extreme spread was 62, a little higher than we were with our 180s. Not bad. All right, I'm going to load up some 180 grain and see how well they shoot. There's advertisers going at around 2,400 feet per second, but I suspect that's with a 24-inch barrel. They usually measure their velocities with those. This is a 20-inch barrel, and we'll see if I can get any kind of a group. Now, I'm going to make my excuses ahead of time. My eyes are not the best for this kind of stuff. I don't know how well I'm going to see these sights. The little bit of practicing I have done with it suggests not very well at all. Okay, got the chronograph ready to measure. Yeah, I'm getting some glare off of the open sight itself from the sky. I need to put some flat black on that. Let's just see if we can come close. I'm taking a real fine bead here. I'm aiming under my target at 50 yards, depending on how you're zeroed. I gotta go check that camera and see what I did. Now I got 2 of them touching almost, and then put one out. Blame my eyes, guys. I would hate to blame that rifle. Now let's just see what the 200 grain bullets do. This is what I would likely shoot were I hunting with this. I would go with the 200. You have a pretty low sectional density in these 35 caliber bullets at that weight. So I'd want to really maximize that. And that's why I'm thinking I'm going to go with the 200s. Let's see if they group any differently. You see where those holes are. I'm going to make the same hold. This is not like shooting with a scope where I can really fine tune where I'm going to place these shots. Pretty difficult for me to see these sights adequately. But let's just see if we can put them in that same vicinity. Under the target. No idea where that's hitting other than I see some dust flying. Huh. Boy, it's hard for me to see that sight. Yeah, I'm going to really have to work on those sights. I think I would look into a Skinner sight, a peep sight. I can do a lot better with a peep sight in my eyes. That way I can concentrate on that front post and not have to worry about the bright edges I'm getting on that open rear sight. See what kind of a group we can get. Boy, that is tough to see that target. Well, I take it back. I'm seeing the target. What's tough to see is the sights. You like to say I can't keep the front sight in focus when the back is, or vice versa, but I can't keep either one of them. Boy, it's a nice smooth shooter. Mild recoil. I think I'm going to go pretend it's 1960 and play out in the woods with this. Reminisce about the good old days, because a lever action is what I started hunting with. See if I can still do it. Well, this is what it was like in the 40s and 50s, probably the 30s. When I grew up, a lot of the guys were wearing this and heading to the woods with their trusty lever actions. And that's what I love about this 360 Buckhammer and the Henry side gate rifle. They just take us back to those glory days. And it's, as I said earlier, it's fun to dress up like this and hunt in this manner. And it's a matter of still hunting and or stump sitting, we used to call it. And you just wait for your opportunity and take them as they come. And it's all pretty close range, inside of 100 yards almost all the time. Got him. I never miss. Got him. One of the reasons the old timers liked these big magazine, high capacity magazine rifles was because we were often doing drive hunts and pushing deer. So we were taking running shots through the 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s when I started. And some of the old timers could really hit a running deer. I'm not one of them. Hey guys, if we're talking deer hunting, we're going to need a knife. Your 360 Buckhammer will probably bring that whitetail down, and then you need to get him ready for the table. And a good hunting knife is always a companion you want on your hip. This is a great one from Diamond Blade Knives, our sponsor. And this one is called the Summit. It's got the belly in the blade here, which is a bit of a drop point on top of the spine. That's the one I think I've told you before that I think is optimum for your general purpose field knife, whether you're skinning your deer or fleshing your deer or cutting chunks of meat off of it. It just seems to pretty much cover everything. Now, what I like about this one is its style. It's the old-fashioned style, and that's why I threw it in with this
lever action rifle close woods thing. Kind of going back to the good old days when a lot of us had these bone handle rifles. You can make these out of bone or antler. Antler is bone. These are made out of antler, and it's a classic style. So you're getting a full tang knife, good and strong. You've got a bit of taper in the spine here towards the tip, which makes for easier cutting initially to get under that skin, and a great bevel on the blade. But to me, the best part of the Diamond Blade line of knives is that friction forged technology, which results in some, they call it nanotech or nano-sized crystals in the steel. They forge it, hammer it, and heat it to such a degree that they are getting the crystal structure so fine and smooth that you can't even see it without an electron scanning microscope. The upshot is that the edge of that blade has been tested and proven to hold its edge 10 times longer than the next closest competitor. So that sounds pretty impressive, and I have used it several years now in the field, and it seems to hold up to that claim. So if you are looking for a knife that you don't have to sharpen very often, you might want to consider one of these Diamond Blades. And this, I think, is a good all-around option. The Summit with a classic bone handle. And if you order for the first time, they will give you 10% off at Diamond Blade Knives if you mention RSO10. That's the code to get 10% off. And now, time for tip of the week. Say, if you guys have sort of gotten jaded in your deer hunting, things are getting a little too easy. Perhaps you have a cartridge in a rifle that's a little too much accurate and you can reach too far. If you want to put a little more excitement and challenge into your hunt, I hardly recommend going with one of these Woods cartridges and a lever action rifle. It just harks back to the good old days, the golden era of whitetail deer hunting in North America. And I think you will really get excited by it's just a combination of the tool that you're using and this newly acquired ability to still hunt and stalk and get close in the woods. It just raises the excitement level. So if you haven't tried one yet, you might want to investigate a lever action in one of the classic Woods cartridges, 35 Remington, 360 Buckhammer, 3030 Winchester. Hey guys, if you want to read some fun blogs on RonSpomerOutdoors.com, you're certainly invited to go there. The cost is really affordable. It's free. But RonSpomerOutdoors.com has a lot of articles on cartridges and ballistics and hunting tactics, and you name it, we cover it. You might want to check that out. You can also go to RSO TV on there and become a member, and you don't have to listen to advertisements. We do all of these videos plus a few more that you don't see on social media on RSO TV for $5 a month. And then we have a store with some mugs and some t-shirts and some logos. Hunt honest and shoot straight. Always great to have your support. Check out RonSpomerOutdoors.com website. Well, that seems to be the story on the 360. I think it's an extremely viable cartridge for this kind of work, and it just might replace the 35 Remington, but it would be kind of nice for that 35 Remington to hang around for another 120 years or so. But either way, which one you choose, you're going to have the same performance, and you're going to have yourself a heck of a fun time out in the whitetail woods with a 35 caliber lever action. This is Ron Spomer. Thanks for joining me. Whatever you decide to hunt with, always hunt honest and shoot straight.